So hello guys, welcome again to TIT JavaScript class, and we did our first video. That was just something to give a light to say welcome to TIT JavaScript class once you open that web page. So let me show you what we did in the last class by running this guy. It was just something like this. They're just going to pop up with an alert message. So something like this will just pop up, and then once you click on it, it just say hello world or hello. So it say hello. So that was what we did in the first class. Now let's move on to today's session. We're going to modify probably a little bit of this, but then in another style, where we are going to be counting numbers by doing something else. So as you might be familiar with HTML, like we discussed in previous videos, I'm just going to go faster with it, and also with some CSS, but then we're going to focus more on the JavaScript aspect of this code. So let's move faster. I'm going to declare my .text to say that it is an HTML document, and also I'm going to set my HTML language. I'm going to set my HTML language to English to tell my web browser that this code was written in English. And I'm going to open my header here, and in this header I'm going to have my title of my page to say maybe you can just say TIT CM or counting machine. I don't want to make it long because it's going to be on just the top of the web page. So TIT CM. CM is another name for somebody very special. But then let's move on and say, now we already have our title. Let's move down to our JavaScript. So to do JavaScript, you have to open and close this this guy, almost like the same way we did with the header. It's the same way with this, but just script. So this is going to tell the web browser that accept everything within this block as a JavaScript code. So how are we going to do, or what are we going to do today? We are going to create a button that once you click on that button, then the number should be increasing. The number should be increasing, but then it should change whatever content we have as our H1 or H2 or H3 to that number we really want. So let's set up a variable here called, in JavaScript, if you want to set up a variable, like in Python and other things, you just put the variable name and then equals to whatever you want to put. But in JavaScript, you say let, and then you put the variable name. So the variable name here can be counting, and then we can initialize this to be 0. So we start counting from 0, and then we now create a function here, and this function is going to be called maybe TIT counting. Okay, and it's going to be void. That means we don't put anything in this function, we just leave it empty. So now we can now say what we want this function to do. We want this function to increment this counting variable. So we could do it by saying increment, which is like this increment, that will keep incrementing. We can also say counting equal counting plus 1. It will also do that. Another faster way we're going to use is just plus plus. That is going to increment every time we call it. So with this, what we can do now is we can say something. We can say that document or query selector. Okay, document or query selector. What do we want to do? We want H1. It could be H2, it could be H3, H1 is for heading or header 1. We want our header 1 to do what? We want it to have this inner HTML, that is whatever content that will be in this H1, we want it to be updated to what? To be updated to what? Counting variable. So update that to counting. Okay? So whatever text or whatever thing that is in this H1 should be what? Changed to counting. And what is counting? Counting is a variable that is initialized with 0, start counting from 0, and then it is also in this function, and the use of this function is to increment from 0 to 1 whenever something is done. So now we are done with the JavaScript aspect of this code. We now have to do a little bit of HTML and CSS. So let's open our body section here. Open our body section, and then since we say we want H1 to be changed, or whatever content we have in H1 should be changed, we can now say that H1 maybe we can say TIT counting machine, TIT counting machine, and then we can say something. This TIT counting machine, what it does? Okay, we just leave it like this as our H1 for now. But then we also want to create a button. We want to create a button here that will say something. So let's say our button should be created. And in this button, we want to say once we click. So JavaScript have something called onClick. So we say onClick. We want you to call this function. And what's the name of this function? This function is called TIT counting. Okay? This function is called TIT counting. So we want you, once you click on this button, it should call this function called TIT counting. And what is TIT counting? TIT counting is a function here that we declare to increment counting. And what is counting? Counting is a variable that is initialized with 0. So how are we going to change that? We say document query selector, that is search in this entire document, and then query or find H1. So it's going to come in this entire document to find this H1. Once you find this H1, we want you to change the inner HTML, that is these things. The inner HTML, we want you to change it to counting back here. So basically this is it. And then we can try now to close our HTML here. Okay, and we close this HTML. We want to run this program and see if we have any problem or if we are on course before we can do whatever we want to do. For some security reason, let me just update this guy by refreshing, and then I'm going to open this with my Google Chrome browser to see what happened. So Google Chrome just open here, and it says TIT counting, but then we aren't really seeing what we wanted. There might be some problem, and then how can we fix this problem? There might be some problem. So let's see what's happening here, because this button is very tiny. It's very tiny. Okay, there is no name on it or whatever it is. Very tiny. You cannot really see it. So let's close this guy. And then when we close it, we come back to our code to modify something. You notice that we left out something here. We did not give this button a name. We did not give this button a name. So let's call this button TIT counting machine as well. Or it can just be whatever name. TIT counting program. Okay? TIT counting program. That's the name. And then we come back here. We run this code again to see what happened. I'm going to open this guy in my Chrome browser to see what happened. So now we have a name here called TIT counting program. So according to the program we wrote, we said once we click on this button, this thing should be changed now to counting 0, 1, 2, 3 as we keep clicking. So if we click here, let me try to increase a little bit. Okay, so if we click here now, it's going to change to 1. If we keep clicking, 2, 3, 4, like that. Okay, so basically that was it. But then we can also do something. We can add some star to this program. We can add some star by opening our star session. We can add some star here to this program. So let's start our H1. Let's start our H1. And what do we want to start on our H1? We want our text color, or maybe the text alignment can also be in the center of the page. And then we also want our color of this H1. We want our color maybe in blue or in red. Maybe you can take blue. Okay. And then we also want something, our font size. We want our font size maybe to be in 72 pixel. Okay. So it's going to put only the H1. This guy is going to put only this H1 in the center. Change this H1 color to blue. Change this H1 font size to 72. So now let's see what happened. So you see here, it make it very big, TIT counting machine. It put in the center, change the text color to blue and all of that. So once we click on TIT counting machine, everything's going to change here to 1, and then like that, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. We can say, okay, if you reach 10, then give an alert message to say you have reached 10. Do you want to continue? Blah blah blah. So we can do that as well. So maybe in the next program or in our next video, we're going to see how we can modify this code or this program. And also, if you see on the top here is TITCM. Okay, TITCM. So that was just it. It's JavaScript class with TIT Guru B all day and every day. If you have any question or any concern, feel free to let me know by leaving a comment, or you can inbox me. Keep safe. Corona is real.